Now let's get back to Bakuma, the ancient Egyptians. Since they were known as iron workers, Kuma, the prefix ba and wa represents people. It means people. Ba, Kuma, the people of iron. Bakuma also used the word KM to denote their land, to recognize their land. But it didn't mean black land, KMT, Kemet. It doesn't mean black land or land of black people. You know, I know a lot of us want to believe that because, again, that is biased to the point of almost being myopic. We got to overstand and be truthful or real in what we're trying to do here. We're trying to find our reality of history and our story. What did his story get from our story? So when we take out the whole idea of Kam and KMT, meaning Kemet, black land and whatnot, land of the black people, we will understand that they also referred to this land as the land of the spirits of our ancestors who often appear to us in dreams. And this land, KM or KMT, they called Koma, the exact same word that they use in Kiswahili, Koma. Now, that word KM denotes two things: that we are the people who work iron from the great one who created iron, Bakuma, who live in the land of our ancestors, Koma. Now let's get to, like I said, some of the derivatives and often misunderstood cases of KM, Kam, Kim, Kemet. First, again, the word KM stands for the iron one, which is Kuma or Okum. Now, they refer to themselves, as I said, the Bantu rule for people represents Ba or Wa. So the word, for instance, the word Bantu, as you say, Ba-Ntu, means the men or the people, because Ntu means people or person. So we get to one of the other spellings that they refer to themselves as KMTW or U, KMTW. And what this breaks down to be is Kuma Etu. Kuma Etu. Because the suffix in ba and tu that represents we or us is etu. It's also sometimes seen as wetu and other forms of the sort, yetu, but they all mean the same thing, we or us. So when they call themselves, as you say, Kemet tu, and as I used to incorrectly say myself before properly studying the language, when they say KMTW, as you say, Kemet tu, the word is actually Kumaetu. Now, the end of Kuma has an A. The beginning of the prefix etu is E because it's spelled E-T-U. So that A and the E are run together and they form one word, K-U-M-E-T-U. And the pronunciation is Kumetu. Or if we go with the Okum, it is Okumetu. They refer to themselves as we, people of the great iron. That brings us to the next improper name that has been used by the Wallace Budges and the so-called Egyptologists and those who study our people. This is spelled KMTW, and then the second word is N-I-W, new, as they say. As you see sometimes, and I give this man great respect, Ashwa Kwesi, he has his site and whatnot that's called Kemet Nu. However, we have to correct even our great scholars once we find information that is more concrete and solid than even theirs. And this is a case here. A lot of you are familiar with the term Kemet Nu. However, the word Kemet Nu, as it's spelled K-M-T-W-I-N-W or I-N-U, is actually, as we just previously stated, Kemetu, and then that NIW is properly pronounced Enyewe. Enyewe. Because Enyewe means our people, our nation, those of us in our land, our forefathers, ourselves. It means a collective group in a nation. And they still use the word today, Enyewe. So this so-called Kemet Nu is actually pronounced Kemetu Enyewe. Or if we go with the Okum, it will be Okumetu Enyewe. And this means we are the nation of people of the Iron One. You have it? Now, when we look at the names of the land, as we said, the land of our ancestor spirits that sometimes appear to us in dreams. That word was Koma, or as in Zulu, isiZulu, Ngoma or Goma. But in this sense, this word Koma is often pronounced with the T on the end. So I've seen pronunciations such as Kami, Ikami, Kemi, Ikemi. To mean black. Yes, those words do mean black in some languages. However, not in this case, this is not the term. Because we have to look at the concept and the purpose of what the people use the land for before we can understand properly what the name was and should be properly used as, if we as scholars are to properly educate our people. So we're not talking about the lands of black people here. We're not talking about the black soil from the inundation of the Nile Valley or the Nile River. That prefix T, when referring to land, Bantu rule here, that T can be pronounced as a T, as T. It could be pronounced CH, as Ch. Or it could be pronounced with a J, Ch. See, if we say Ta, Cha, Cha, you can't tell the difference. Because remember, a lot of these were oral languages. And only the Europeans wanted to quantify it by putting it in writing. So according to what the European heard, he either heard a T, a CH, or a J. Okay? So in this case, he heard a T, such as the Wallace Budges. But that T actually represents, if you look at the symbol, it looks like a half circle on the base, on a flat base. That T actually represents the horizon, with the sun rising above that horizon. And once that sun rises above the horizon, you can see the land starting to appear. So the concept of the T to mean land, as you say ta, the concept was the sun shine light on the land to give realization of the land at the early morning of dawn, the rising of the great Ra. You understand? So with this in mind, if we look at the current Bantu languages, and there are many, to my understanding, over 200, 300, I don't know how many there are, they all have some derivative of these elements of the ancient Bantu languages, including what you call ancient Egyptian. So that name land, that T, is pronounced T in T. Or if we look at it, that T, according to Bantu rule, can be pronounced Nchi. Do we see Nti or Nchi? Yes, we do in Kiswahili. The word for land of our forefathers, country, nation of our people, or whatnot, however you want to say it, a word for that is Nchi. So in particular, the ancient Egyptians, Bakuma, used the T at the end of the word denoting their land. So what this would mean is that the word was Koma Nchi. However, according to Bantu rule, that prefix chi would go in the front of the word. Because if you look at the Bantu languages now and the lands, that prefix goes in the front. That denotion of the land goes in the front. So that word chi or ti or Nchi would actually go in the front. and it would be Nchikoma. Now, if we look at the Bantu language Bemba, you see the word Bemba written as Chibemba, Chi, with no N in the front, because the N is nasal, Nchi. So in some Bantu languages, they left it off and just said Chi, as in Chibemba. So in this case, the ancient Egyptian Bakuma left off that N and they called it Chikoma, for the land of the spirits of our ancestors. Chikoma, not Kemet, Chikoma. So when we refer to the people, we refer to them as either Kuma Ba'intu or Bakuma, and we refer to the land as Chikoma. You understand? Now, that Chi could be spelled C-H-I or it could be spelled C-I, as in Bemba, but it still means the same, land of our ancestor spirits. This is why the importance was put on the embalming of our people at that time in our land. We've always done that. This has always been a sacred thing to us. This is why it was so important for us to maintain the richness of our land. It was great care taken into the embalming and the preservation of our people and our memories of our people and our ancestors. As I said, ancestor communion. So let's move a step further. We look at it and we wonder, how do we know this? And to whom are Bakuma referring to as their ancestors? I hope you understand who I speak, because I hate saying the ancient Egyptians. So from now on, Bakuma, Wakuma, Kumetu, I will be referring to them as the proper names. We're going to get down into right knowledge. Okay? It is already known that our people came from the south, came from the origin of the Nile Valley. We all know this. However, where do they say it themselves? People look at the Dr. Benz and say that we came from the foothills of the mountain of the moons where Hapi sleeps. Okay, that's overstood. I like that. But you got to give me more than that. We have to show where it says that. It's common knowledge that the so-called pyramids are called the tombs of Bakuma. We all know that's where the tombs are of the great kings and people. But the word pyramid itself is a Hellenic word. So what did Bakuma themselves call it in their language? Let's get down to another Bantu rule. When we refer to the languages of Bantu people, we oftentimes refer to it as Ki, K-I, representing the language of. Ki Kuma, the language of those of Kuma, the Kuma people. We say Ki Swahili, the language of the Swahili people, and it goes on and on. In the southern parts, Afrika Kwasuto, in the southern parts of Afrika, we had the isiZulu, Chibemba. We always had some type of prefix representing the language. Now, the language prefixes differed from the prefix of the land and the prefix of the people. So when we look at this, we have to understand the prefixes. So we have to relate it to what they did in their languages. The word pyramid is a Greek word denoting what the Greeks saw in that land. But the people of the land spoke Ki Kuma, and they called these pyramids, so-called, M-R. M-R. Well, what does this spell? And they even denote it with the shape of the pyramid, so to speak. Well, this M-R represents their origin. And they show it in pronunciation as Meru. M-E-R-W or M-E-R-U. Meru. Where do we see this? We see it in another pronunciation not too far south, back up the Nile, and is in a city called Merowe. Merowe. And that city, depending on the dialect, was also known as Merewi or Merewi, depending on the dialect.